All right, guys, you want to tighten up a little bit? We'll go over the sweeper. So this is our 2850 low profile sweeper. This one's got the Power V closing arm on it. The power unit, everything's the same. It's just an attachment with the closing arm. So some of you may or may not be familiar with that. If you have any specific questions to the closing arm, let me know and we can go over that as well. Start with the head, and most of you probably already know this, but we'll just go through it. And if you have any questions, let me know. But the biggest thing is making sure that head, for the most part, is relatively flat. Maybe just a slight tilt to it. Definitely don't want to angle it down, burying that head. You'll be pushing all kinds of dirt in the windrow, wearing out your components a lot faster than you should be. So that's always the first thing. So you want to make sure that thing's flat. When you make your adjustments, you're not going to be using the top link to do it. Once you get it set flat where you want it, you leave that. You need to adjust your height. Initially pull it into the shop and do it on concrete. You break this loose here and you use these two settings here to make your adjustments on height. Initially you want it in the shop and be about 3/8 inch off the ground or so. And then pull it into the field. After you get it into the field, then you can make your minor adjustments from there and fine tune everything. This unit has our brush attachment on it, which is an option as well. It's pretty simple. It plumbs right into the system. It's got its own lift cylinder and it comes up with it. You do have some versatility here, so if you've got plantings with different spacings, you can swing it in or out to get some more freedom depending on what your plantings are. This brush does float, so it'll contour with the ground as you're moving, and you can adjust your tension with the spring here. Good. I'm going to go ahead and we'll move around here and kind of go over the new setup with the belts. As far as grease points on the head, it's just the two zerks on the head lift, and those are gonna be daily grease points. Other than that, and there's one more in the back, other than that, they're all sealed bearings, so you don't want to grease them. Grease them beginning of the season, end of the season, but you guys shouldn't be pumping them full of grease every day, blowing seals out. So with this setup, with the tension on the belts, it's all just held by the weight of the blower housing. So you can see here that floats, and that actually keeps the tension on those belts. It does have a shock in here, that way if you get tilted or something, it bounces up. It's not going to bounce loose and the belts aren't going to come off. When you need to change the belts, all you do is lift up on this arm here and you can pull the belts straight off. Make sure it's a special Kevlar belt, so make sure when you replace them you're getting that specific belt. And then also too, anytime you're replacing the belts, check the shivs too, because if the shivs are worn, you put new belts on, you're just going to keep spinning belts. So this just a standard radial seal air filter, inner and outer. You want to check that a couple times a day. We don't recommend blowing them out. Just pull them, tap them. If the inner's got any dirt on it at all, you want to change both of them. You do want to grease here every day as well. Like I said, other than that, you don't need to be greasing the bearings all the time. This is our 3-wheel drive unit, so it looks a little bit different than what you guys will see down here. So don't be thrown off or worried by any of this. Everything else is the same. There is an upgraded spindle on the steer fork on the new units. We've been testing it for a couple years now, and it's pretty good. Blowing the machine out, cleaning it off, daily maintenance. Obviously, like I said, check your air filters. When you come in here, pull the condenser out. Blow the radiator from the inside out, and depending on your conditions, if it's real dirty, if you got a bunch of real fine grass, it's going to determine how often you need to be blowing that out. When you're blowing off the engine, make sure you're getting both sides and also getting in underneath where the cross tube comes under the engine. You get a lot of debris will build up under there, and get all that blown out and cleaned up.
I got a question for you. Do you have debris that builds up by your DPF filter as well? And is that a potential fire hazard?
I think any debris buildup could be potential for an issue. So the goal is just keep it as clean as possible. There is a lot of heat in there. I'm not an expert on DPF systems as far as temperatures and things like that, but you definitely want to keep the whole area clean, and not just what you can see on top. Getting in underneath everything, getting the nozzle in, blowing everything off. So for the regen system, it is all auto regen. So your operators should be able to get in the machine and just run it, and not really, they don't need to do anything with the regen system. Just let it go through the process on its own. If they override the regen a certain amount of times, it'll derate the engine. You have to do a parked regen and sit with it. Depending on the buildup, could be hours, could be half an hour. It just depends where it is. So best practice is just don't touch it, and let it run on its own, let it do its thing.
I got another question for you. So the guy's coming up, it's break time, the light comes on, the regen is in progress. Basically, he should keep that machine running regardless to let it go through its regen.
The best thing to do is let it finish its regen.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as it's going through the process, it shouldn't, if it's happening while they're running, it shouldn't affect the way they're running at all. They should be able to continue as normal. But yeah, those instances do come up at break time or at the end of the day. When possible, the best thing to do is to let it finish its process. So all the controls now are all on the joystick. As far as opening, closing the air gates, raising, lowering the chutes, it's all right there on the joystick. The head lift pedals are still on the floor. So it's simple, everything's pretty straightforward. The touch screen in here is for the regen system. So the best thing that you can do as an operator, or if you're training your operators, is tell them to just not touch the touch screen. And the only time that they need to stop during a regen is if on that screen, it'll actually come up and it'll say stop. So that's a good way to coach them. It's a good way to tell them. But best thing to do is tell them, don't touch the touch screen. It's tempting. You see lights flashing, things going on, but the best thing to do is not touch it and let it run on its own. It's climate control, so you can set your temperature. Fairly straightforward. They all come standard with the rear view camera now. Nothing you really need to know on that. I mean, it's simple ag cam. I think you guys are all pretty used to that stuff. So this is our 9800 harvester. Well, a lot of you are probably already very familiar with it. We'll cover the high level stuff, and the same thing, if you got any questions, let me know and we'll move through it. It's a basic 540 PTO. Make sure you grease the slide daily. You also want to grease the universal joints here. Check your belt tension daily as well. You want to make sure that's good and snug. Also too, when you're going through doing your maintenance, blowing things out, make sure you're getting in here, blowing all this out, because that'll get real compacted with dirt and debris and then start binding up on things. So just make sure you blow all that out. Also too, at the end of the day, it's a good idea, lift it up like we have it here and let it run, get everything out of there, just for a few minutes or so. We got everything opened up. Same deal. You want to, daily you want to go through here and check, make sure all your liners are good, nothing's loose, blades are good. Just general visual inspections. If this comes up too, we'll go around the other side and talk about setting the head height and everything, but it's all pretty straightforward. As far as checking tension on the belts, with the pickup belt, we just check the deflection there. You can feel that angle iron underneath. You make sure you keep that fairly tight. Same deal like we talked about on the sweeper with the bearings, with sealed bearings. You don't need to be greasing them every day. We recommend, beginning and end of season, everybody's got their own schedules and everybody does things differently, but as far as manufacturer recommendation, that's what we recommend doing. So this is set up with the basic single stage pump, PTO driven. This is the flow control for the front feeder flap. So if you need to make your adjustments for that, you can do it here. Obviously that front feeder flap is spinning opposing to the pickup belt, so it's creating that pickup motion. This is your relief here. Same deal, we talked about the tension on the pickup belt. Obviously what you do to one side, you want to make sure you're doing to both sides. Simple, straightforward stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary. As far as checking the tension on the intermediate belt, the chain here, you want to be able to get your 4 fingers in there is the best way to check it. So not much more, not much less. And you start getting a bunch of sag in there and you just need to snug things up. And again, when you make your adjustments, do the same thing on one side, whether you're measuring it or counting turns, whatever you're doing. This flow control here controls your pickup belt and your intermediate chain. So they're tied together because you want to make sure everything's running the same speed and going smooth. On the elevator chain, you want to be running that a little bit slower, just enough to get your discharge into the cart. Just gives it more time to travel. So, same deal with basic adjustments. Brake, make your adjustments here. Daily, it's probably a good idea. You want to open this up, check everything, make sure everything's in working condition, there's no issues. Just basic visual inspection. You can use your hands, check it. Obviously, from a safety perspective, you don't want to be opening any of this stuff, pulling on any covers. When it's running, be careful, don't stick your hands in anything, obviously. Your support rods too, same deal. Visual inspection on the support rods, just making sure nothing's wearing through. If you need to make vacuum adjustments, this door is adjustable here, and there's the rubber flap that hangs down. Just be conscious that the further you push that door down, the more suction you're going to get. If you got operators making adjustments in the field on the fly, and the managers aren't on top of them, you just want to be careful you're not pulling product out. You can do a lot of damage really quick if you've got that set too low.